Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report.
So much at figuring out how to do all this, and it's working out really quite well. Although I apologize that I look a little whiter than normal because there's sun coming in and I'm halfway done with my studio. Other than that, I'll have a fix next week. We've got a great show for you today, and I'm going to introduce Natasha Venter first. She's our resident medium. And she can talk to you about all sorts of things, present and past, animals, plants, inanimate objects. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that too.
and also Regan Forston is with us, and he is our resident hypnotherapist and works with Life Between Lives and the Michael Newton Institute and his work. And Regan, why don't you introduce our new member and our guest today?
Okay, yeah, this is Kathleen. She's also a Life Between Life practitioner through the Newton Institute. And I believe Kathleen's been doing it for quite a lot longer than I have. Is it, Kathleen, about 10 years now?
It's probably closer to 15.
How long?
It was 2007, so
okay,
probably 15 years, yeah.
Yeah, a long time, okay. So she's got a lot of experience, and she's the practitioner that helped me a couple of weeks ago. We were exchanging sessions to go to the other side to ask about the COVID and about the vaccines and about what our purpose as practitioners are in helping the world get through COVID. And I'm going to do a session for her in a couple of days on, Thursday, I guess, is when it is. So, and then but Kathleen does a number of other things too. Like a lot of us therapists, besides work with Michael Newton, we've done other spiritual type of work before, and that's why I invited Kathleen on the show today, because Natasha and her can have a great discussion on the topic, I think, and we can all learn a little bit more about this other modality that she uses, which she'll tell you about in a minute.
And Kathleen, why don't you piqued my interest in our call prior to the show? So why don't we just delve right into it, and that'll make sure we have enough time to deal with it. And so tell us what it is that you do.
Well, to back up a little bit, when you do a Life Between Lives, you connect first with the guide, and sometimes it's difficult to connect with the guide. And one of the reasons is that there is another spirit attached. And generally, when there's another spirit attached, the guide sort of stands back and doesn't really come forward. He doesn't interfere. So what I have had a fair amount of experience with is releasing these spirits who are earthbound.
Oh, they're earthbound, so they are. So help me understand that a little bit. They're connected to the spirit guide, who is on the other side, but the other spirits that have attached themselves to it. Is it because they can't find their way home? What's going on with them?
Yeah, that's kind of mixing a lot of stuff in there, but
I do that.
Just to simplify it, let's just say that a child dies for whatever reason, and the mother is heavily grieving the child, and the child wants to kind of stay and take care of his mother and help her with her grief and whatever, and he's still a kid. When you die, there is this period of time where you can just go to the light. It seems that after that time has passed, that it closes up, or possibly you just tend to look to the earth more rather than looking up. So you lose the easy conduit into the spirit world. So they're kind of between the earth and the spirit world, and kind of stuck. Some of them feel like they're stuck, some of them are not. There's a myriad of reasons why spirits remain here. That would be one. In fact, my very first one that I had the client reclining, and I was just checking for attached entities, and she sits straight up and says, "It's Gaga." And I was just, my heart stopped. It was almost a frightening experience. Come to find out that that's what happened, that there was a child that died down the street, and he wanted somebody to play with. So she was young, and it was her invisible friend playing with her, which was great at the time. But she grew up, and the spirit child did not. So the spirit child would say, when she wanted to go exercise in particular, she would get ready to go exercise, and she'd almost hear this whining, "I don't want to go." She said she couldn't figure out why this whining was going on, but it was really the spirit child who did not want to go exercise. So once we released the child into the light, she was free to live her life easier.
Interesting. Natasha, do you have a question for her?
I don't, because I actually do a lot of the same thing. And I kind of do a little bit differently too, because like sometimes when I sit down to do a medium session or a meditation type of, and I do kind of not hypnosis, but a lot of my meditations kind of do that same process. That even before I even start my session, sometimes I notice somebody has like shame in front of them, and they are almost like an entity that blocks moving forward. And so I ask that entity of shame or fear or even just dominance. You know, sometimes there's no word to it. I even say sometimes, you know, there's an emotion kind of like, blah, 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 and we're going to ask it to step aside, you know, because it's kind of that chaoticness, you know, that doesn't have a word, but it's that energy in front. And so I'll ask it to step aside, to be a witness, to honor it. You know, you've done a great job. Thank you. And step it aside. And so I do a lot of the same thing. And that allows us to have a session freer, because that energy is not standing in front, putting on earphones so that this person doesn't hear. And then usually that energy starts saying, "Oh, wait a minute, I understand what the bigger picture is here," and moves forward. And yes, there's people who have entities attached to them, but a lot of times it's just us emotions that stand in front of us that block us from moving forward too. So, you know, I can understand it totally what Catherine's doing, because it's like, you know, we all have something that carries with us. Sometimes it's somebody like an inner the child from before, or even, you know, like somebody who used to go to bars a lot. You know, they would have this energy attached to them, and they don't know why they can't stop drinking, you know, because this energy still wants to keep drinking, and it needs to be released to move forward. And you know, I totally see why spirits don't want to go home sometimes, because it's almost funner in the bar than it is to go to the light. You know? So, you know, we all have these moments where things happen.
So yeah. I have a question then, Natasha, then. So sometimes you speak to this energy as like it's an entity or a person when it's an energy. In other words, if like with Kathleen and I, when we're doing these life between life regressions, and if we get stuck somewhere, then we could go, maybe it's a negative energy, or maybe it's another entity of some sort that's keeping them. But Kathleen and Natasha, how do you how do you figure that out? You know, what it is from the client? Do you ask them questions, or do you?
It's sort of an intuitive feeling. You know, you can kind of tell, like Natasha knows that if they're clear, or if there's something there that is interfering. And sometimes it will be like they can't get comfortable, like, "Oh, you know, my foot really hurts," or "I have this pain." And when you start investigating the pain, it could be, like Natasha said, an emotion, or it could be an entity of itself. And so you clear that out. And the great thing about hypnosis is the client will tell you, they'll express for you what it is that, Natasha probably hears and sees and feels more. We use our clients to tell us, and it comes out clearly.
So what do you, I mean, okay. So the person's, I mean, that's when they're deep enough, right? They'll tell you. But if you can't get them deep enough because there's this energy blocking them from letting go, then how do you deal with that? I mean, compared to when they're deep.
It really doesn't take a very deep trance level to address it. In fact, you can use it as a affect. You just go into the feeling. You don't even have to do an induction. So just the affect, just can I talk to this pain or this feeling? Usually it's a heaviness or a pain or a feeling or something. And then I tend to ask, what is your name? And if it's like a woman and she says something like John, it's definitely not a part of her. So if it is a discarnate entity, they'll tell you their name usually. The only time they won't tell you your name is if they're dark energy, and then they're not allowed.
Yeah, because then that means if like my dragons I work with, they won't give you their true name, because if you have their true name, you have ownership over them. And dark entities and pure energies understand that. And so that's why sometimes even star people won't give us their full names, because they know that statement of saying their true name. Like I have a true name that my soul has, and I won't tell anybody that, because I don't want somebody to have, okay, how do I put this? I have trust in the people around me. I don't have trust to give away my lock and key of me. You know what I mean? That I don't want that ownership of somebody else having over me. That could be even a star person who hears it, and then they come in and piggyback me. You know what I mean? So it's like there's those ownerships that we have to be careful of that we give away, and not everybody understands that. So that's where sometimes when you hear, like you watch these shows and a little kid comes over and actually it's a dark entity, a very dark entity. And that's because they're playing the game of how to be called out, and because they don't want ownership over them. It's an empowering thing.
That's very interesting. So the dark ones, are they prevalent? Are there a lot of them around?
There's some. I mean,
I find that everything has balance. So if there's light, there's going to be dark. And not every dark entity is dark. Like I've said before, like I work with the fairies, and the fays, there was a dark fae in my kid's bedroom. But it wasn't dark. It was actually my kid had problems with depression. And so that fae was actually being a vacuum cleaner for my kid's depression. Now, if it got too dark, it was too dark, and I had to ask it to go clean itself, go out, do what it needed to do to cleanse itself. Just like anything, like my rocks, sometimes they want to go outside or be put in a shower to cleanse themselves. Everything, we need to cleanse ourselves. Things need to be shaken out and that kind of stuff. And this is a belief I have. Now, not everybody has this belief system. At the same time, though, there is, and I'm not going to call it a devil or anything like that, because, somebody who had a very dark life can take over like a house, or like you see these insane asylums or something like that. And this dark entity, like a doctor or something who is very dark, could take over this control of the spirits around them, because they have a knowing about them. It's like their soul has lived a couple lifetimes of this kind of darkness, and so they know how to play the game, and that's how they interact that way. But I would say that there's darkness and light and darkness. You can't say that there's more than or less than. it is what it is. You know, you have to have darkness to have light. It's called the ends of the magnet. You know, both ends of the magnet aren't going to be the same. The under the table and on top of the table is not going to be the same. You know, you're going to have dark and you're going to have light, but that's how we learn things. Like my husband, when he was drinking, one night I was laying there and I knew that there was something attached to him. So I asked, his higher self, because he couldn't give me permission because he was asleep. I asked his higher self to give me permission to work with, because I don't work with anybody who doesn't give me permission. And up pops 3 negative energies. And they were weird. I mean, it was like really weird. And I said, you get them out of my house. You're not allowed to be attached to this man. You're not allowed to be in this house. You know better than that. You get the out, and I wasn't nice about it. And they did scurry away, because of him being an alcoholic, he allowed darkness to come to him.
So Kathleen,
actually, just a second. I need to put something in right here. I'm sorry, that Regan, that I interrupted you, but I actually take alcoholism as an entity. There's a darkness of alcoholism that's called, and it has actually an attachment to it, and I call it an entity. And once somebody stops drinking, that entity of alcoholism or drugs or whatever you want to call it leaves, and you can manage that. So when you actually are working with somebody with alcoholism, you almost have to talk to the entity to see why it's there.
So in the Kathleen, if I understand, like in the Michael Newton's works and all the cases he's done, is that once people are into the light, or like on the other side, he's never found anything remotely like Satan or the devil or anything horrible like that. Only illusions in people's minds that gets cleared up when they're over there. Have you found that to be true also in the cases you've done? In other words, you come in contact with you that are negative energies.
The negative energy has to be cleared early on. Now, Michael Newton said there were no attachments, that he did not believe in spirit attachments. He had never encountered them, which was fine. But when I took my training, I had already been releasing spirit. So, you take it for what it is. So you won't find anything about that in his direct work. Now, a lot of the therapists, have done that. So once you get into the spirit world, you know that it's there's not interference.
There's not interference?
Not when you get there. I haven't encountered any, and
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm trying to put all this together too about, because of the Christian belief in the devil and Satan and all that. And the more I'm seeing this happen, it seems like that maybe exists to a point in the physical world. In other words, for our, you say the plus and minus of everything and the good and the bad. But once you get, in a sense, to the level of spirit, in a sense that there's no such thing as, I haven't found anybody on the other side that's been admonished or put in hell or experienced anything like that, other than what they just, what I tell people, what we found on the other side is people kind of judge themselves over there and they put themselves in timeout in a sense, or something to kind of make up for the wrongs and everything they've done. But there's no like, negative bad force when you get through the, when you get to the afterlife, or to heaven, I would say.
Well, it's interesting because
I consider it more like maybe a bubble, and that the entities, just any of the negative ones, are can't get through the bubble or not invited to the bubble or whatever. Since we can talk about anything, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
You brought up one thing that there's a lot of people who don't believe that there is a devil or dark entities or whatever, which is fine. And then along that same line, there is no hell. Well, I did have a client who had not a possession, and it wasn't an attached entity, but it was a sort of a protector of sorts. And she said that she was she was at the gates of hell, and she was responsible basically for keeping them in so they couldn't escape. And she explained that there's different levels to hell, that when someone does something where they're, just terrible and they're not repentant, they go to this place of hell, which is like it's listed, fire, brimstone, whatever, it's miserable, but it's not their fault. And so as long as they're in there and it's not their fault and they're not remorseful, they don't get out. But should they get to the point where they are saying, oh man, I really did screw up, then they go to another level of hell where it is dark and has a lot of temptations, and they can fall back into the same pattern. If they pass that level, then they're put into a very dense time of history, Middle Ages, or some difficult time, some difficult lifetime, and then they kind of work back up from there. So my philosophy is there's truth in everything, and there's absolute truth or total truth in nothing.
So you got this from it was from a client that you were doing an LBL with?
I got it from a client that I did a session with. And also I had read about this woman who was having a session, and she talked about being in hell. And the therapist said, well, you're sitting right here, so I guess hell isn't eternal. And he said, what happened? And she said, well, I lived a life where I was, don't take this personally, Natasha, but she was psychic. Oh. But she used it very, very negatively. Mm-hmm. And she created a lot of pain for a lot of people. And as a result, she went to her judgment, and they said, look, we're going to give you a choice. You can either come back many, many lifetimes, many, many miserable lifetimes, or you can go to hell for a period of time. And she went, that's a no-brainer. I'll just go to hell for a period of time. Why would I want to go back to all those lives? So she goes to hell for a period of time, and apparently she repents and meditates and whatever, and comes out and comes into some other lives.
Yeah, well, maybe it's a thing on perspective, like where she went because of her upbringing and knowledge of hell. It was hell, but to, let's say, another enlightened person, it would just be a place to go and reflect and do time out and whatever, but not have that image of, the devil. And, I mean, either way, you're going to try to make up for what you've done, or to try to learn to not go back and do the same thing again,
Right. But remember, most people in hell, it's not their fault.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
Well, we have some people that are very visible right now in our world who are doing some very evil things, and they're doing it for the good of humanity. So they feel that they are wonderful people taking care of humanity, when on some level they have to know that what they're doing is the exact opposite. Now say they go to hell for a period of time. Well, what do you mean? I did this to help everybody. What? I did this to help the world. Why am I here?
Well, so in other words, it's like the good cop, bad cop, like someone has to play the bad cop, or someone has to play Hitler or Trump, or somebody to show the negative and everything, or play the part, I guess you'd say. I don't know. It's confusing, but I'm glad we're talking about it, because, the more we do, maybe the more we can shed light on what the true reality really is,
Well, it's interesting, because if you follow the logic would be that, at least my logic, and since it's my show, no, forget I said that. But my logic would be, if there is a hell, that means that there's some place where God isn't. that the energy that is the divine energy of all is everywhere. So it is literally the universe and the many universes that there are. If there's a place where God is not, which would allow this to occur, or that means that he is in charge of hell if he was everywhere.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So from that standpoint, it's like, so are we saying that God is actually not who he pretends to be, and it's okay to punish, which is exactly what Dr. Newton was absolutely against, was that there was no judgment, as an example. So but it's good that we're having this discussion, because it brings out a bunch of stuff that some people take as just gospel, and some are. It's interesting to talk about it.
Yeah. Natasha, what do you think?
Okay, so this is now, remember, me being dyslexic, I didn't read Bibles, I didn't read anything. This was all about being a witness of what was going on and what I got told. And me
Well, heaven is up and hell is down. So you got that.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, it's not. But what I got, and just me checking in with this now, I know, checking back to my lineage, when I first became light, my first time that I know that moment that I was pulled from light to become my own light that I could be. I have an understanding, checking in with that power, that love, that grace, whatever that is, had in itself some darkness, and it pulled darkness off. Now, darkness. Now, I work in the elementary school system. You know when it's not an entity or a spirit that's attached that's negative. You know when their eyes go dark, that there is a dark entity that has never been human. They only involved in being with us humans. Now, I would take some of these really, I wouldn't say Hitler was one of these people that had these dark entities. He was part of the dance of teaching us lessons. But there's a killer that was
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes. And Mason, the one that branded all his women. They had an item. I'm not going to call it it's not like I'm not going to call it hell. I'm just going to call it a dark spot, a dark place in energy, that these beings never have been human, never will be human, but they interact with us humans, that they have come in and they, from some point, decided to take partnership in ownership of that body in that lifetime. And they start from very young. And it could be that the parents were abusive. It could have been an alcoholic mother who was carrying a child and this entity came in. Whatever it is that started it. And I'm not going to call it hell, but there's a dark space where these energies sit, they go to. And even, the dark fae come from, some of the evil dark fae come from that. It's all in whatever that darkness is. I have an understanding that us who are like Hitler or some of these beings that are here to teach us lessons, they go to some place that is kind of like a timeout, and it's not necessarily there's loving beings there helping them learn what they need to learn, but that's called tough love. Those are the ones that have tough love, saying you can't do that anymore. That was that lifetime. And so they're not always, that's what, the fallen angel of Lucifer, was, that he wasn't necessarily a fallen angel. He just was one that decided to be on the dark side of life. Like I work with Azrael, who is the angel of ultimate time. And some of these angels took on some of these beings of angelic realm took on these roles because they decided to be the greater for us. And they wanted to help us learn these lessons. Not every angel wanted to be an ultimate timekeeper, because he takes people from this life and moves them on to another realm. You know, he's the one that interacts. The angel of Lucifer actually is taking charge of helping people work through their darkness.
You know, Lucifer's the devil, right?
In the Bible sense.
Yeah, that's what
the Bible sense. But me knowing Lucifer as I know him, I don't care to work with him because he's dark. And I go Michael, because Michael does not like Lucifer, even though they're brothers. And this is the story that I understand. Now, my truth is my truth. Everybody else can have their own truth. I know the ultimate truth is love. You know, that when we're working with these, that there's these different places and entities. Because I can tell you, I've taken these dark entities that are not human, never have been human, off kids and out of people, because they are darkness. And with that when they are in certain places of the earth, you know, they do go into earth. You know, like I was in a house that it was not a good house, and all of a sudden this dark shadow went into the corner of the room, and they were like going, I know that there's something here. And I said, yep, that corner right there, because it showed me right where its home was. It was in the corner of the house, and it kind of went into that part of the property. That's why there's some properties that are damaged, because there's been such an evil, like the witches that and the ceremonies that somebody does these ceremonies with that are not good. That land is actually deemed that, you know, because it's been scarred so many times. And and I don't know if the land, maybe it makes generations in the past that would have to be, but this is my understanding of what I was told and what I've seen through the many lifetimes that I've lived, knowing what my soul has done the work to do. Because I have been on the soul walk for many, since the day one. And, you know, talking about, you know, like I have one child that I work with that her and I don't work because she used to be an evil witch. And my witch time that I was in, my seer time, we were battling. And so I can't even work with her in this lifetime, really, because I bring out that in her, you know, and so with that it's almost like that battle of you know, past lives that are working together. So I have another para that works with her, because I don't, unless she's on that better side of this lifetime. But if she dances back into that old witch time, I don't work with her at all, because I can trigger her like no tomorrow.
Kathleen, what do you think?
Well, one of the things that struck me, what you said, was about justice. And there actually is justice. And Regan knows about this too. It's called karma.
Yeah.
And the way, I don't know how much you've talked about karma, but karma is a balancing. Is it, say you have been horrible to people in one lifetime, you come back and you have to experience that same thing or something similar, depending on, you know, what it is. And it creates a balance. It creates an understanding. Say like someone was in charge of putting out the eyes of Christians in one time, and they come back as a blind person. So they have to experience what it's like to be blind, since they had created blindness. That's the way that the justice or the karma works.
Yeah. So maybe there's figuratively, there's, if you want to call it health in extreme, or if you just want to call it timeout or tough love, it's all about the soul learning to come from love rather than from hate. And however that's accomplished, and some people are more difficult than others, so they have a little longer sentences, I guess. So maybe it's just a way of looking at it. Like I always look like, you know, like that client I talked about before, who doing an LBL, one of her main questions was, why is this doctor that I'm working with so cruel to me? So cruel to her that she had panic attacks before she goes to work when she knows it's his day to be there, because he was so emotionally cruel to her. And then on the other side, she asked the council, why is this man being so cruel to me? And they just said, because you were very cruel to him in another lifetime.
Mm-hmm. It was about past.
And then so it's kind of that's the thing sometimes when you see these people that look to be innocent or things that happen to them, and it even feels bad saying that, well, you had it, because some people take like, well, you had it coming, well, in a way you did, but when you look at it as just a correction, like in my lifetime here, I've had two businesses where I had clients, or I had some of my trusted employees that stole from me. And it hurt my feelings until I kind of realized, I think I screwed them over in another lifetime. Yeah. And I thought, oh, okay. So I probably had, so it just gave me another perspective, not to be so judgmental of them, to look around first and see, well, why did this happen to me?
It's interesting because from what Natasha's saying and a little bit about what Kathleen is saying is that the world and the universe is far different than I had ever contemplated that it was. Because I believe that God is good and that God is everywhere. And God would not allow somebody to exist who was not good on the other side. That's for here.
Well, I think he allows the justice, though. I have a 4 and a 5-year-old grandchildren, and the 4-year-old is just the sweetest little boy you've ever seen. And the 5-year-old, she's a sweet enough little girl, but she's very active, and she likes to do the wrestling and the punching and the teasing and the, tormenting. And he takes it until one time, and he hit her in the face. And, there was no way I was going to punish him when she deserved it. It's kind of, we get back a little bit of what we put out.
Well, and we do, and that's all earthbound. That's all based upon the behavior here. But what I'm getting is that the behavior on the other side is no different than it is here. That you have good and you have evil and you have bad and you have no one that's in control. Is that what I'm hearing, or is that not what I'm hearing?
I don't want to call it control. I call it kind of like when I was a parent, and I kind of do this. When my kids were like newborn, 1, 2, 3, I kind of had more boundaries on them. And
Right.
then as they became teenagers, I kind of allowed them to have, their learning experiences, that without them having learning experiences, they would not be able to go out into the real world. Because if, cause and effect, and we see that all through the school. Well, you step in the puddle, you're going to have wet shoes all day, cause and effect,
True. That's true.
And so with that there is that karmic cause and effect. And without having the boundaries of some knowing of darkness, we don't see the benefit of being light. And without that shadows, we don't have the knowing of how to move forward. I'm going to say that, yes, what I choose to call God, the big power of the spark of everything. And I'm going to say that kind of, each kind of area kind of has its own kind of overseer, so like if you're in another group of planets, in another area, you might have another seer that is maybe called something else besides God. But that's called different languages. That's why I think we have so many religions, is because we all speak a different language and we need something to attach to our language. And with that we do have this ability to manage, but that's why we are human, having human experiences, which are going to be good and bad, in order for us to grow to our greater good. Now, I know that, speaking of the one that I call God, is not out here to punish us with evil. But sometimes things, it's kind of like a dog, you know, you have a dog that has been taught not good things, and if it gets free, it's going to go off and be primal. It's going to go off and do what it needs to, what it's going to do, because it has personal choice. And that personal choice is making not always the best decisions because it wasn't taught well. Well, these entities that are dark and negative, like I've seen, like I know that are out there, choose not to. Like if you tell me that a sane asylum has things in there, I ain't going in there, no matter how much light I have, because I know that that darkness is not something that I choose to manipulate with. And it could be just mental illness darkness. It's not necessarily darkness of like bad entities, but it's just darkness of mental illness where these energies didn't move on because they don't know really where they're at, you know, and then they have another soul that's kind of controlling them in a way, you know. And so with that there's, I wouldn't say that God has chosen to punish us, but you have to have the darkness on the to learn your karmic good or bad. You know, it's that energy of what is better or not. And that's why I say to people that, you know, when I have sessions, how can I judge you? You know, we all have these different learning experiences. We all have these different knowings that we start out with. And if you didn't know better to do better, then how are you supposed to, you know, now you're where you can do better because you know different to do. So it's that process of growing and maturing and doing what we're supposed to do. But people who take drugs and kind of are in the mental illness, and I'm going to name a lot of the homeless people have, you know, that's where these dark energies like to be, is in a lot of those chaotic moments in like the homeless camps and that kind of stuff, and it saddens me to see this darkness that's involved with somebody who's light, but yet at the same time, it is about about learning those experiences to grow to be who we are, in my opinion.
Regan, what do you think?
Well, I wanted to ask Kathleen and Natasha though too. Okay, so what's a basic, like somebody like me that's not, like, obviously not a medium, and like Natasha is, and Kathleen and I, like when we're doing our sessions, or Kathleen maybe because she's been doing this longer than I do, is there a basic protocol when you have a client?
Terrible connection.
A basic protocol for just in case a client has negative energies or entities with them that I can't visibly see. What would I do? Like, what kind of process would I go through to clear them of those?
Well, it seems like Kathleen's having a little bit of trouble with her internet. So, and I'll let you answer that. So what I noticed when what I notice is that you can see when somebody's uncomfortable, you know, and so if I'm noticing somebody is kind of like either frustration or anger, I name what I see. And then that way it opens up the door. And another thing that I do with a lot of my sessions is let me see that's unseen. Let me hear what's unheard. Let me know what's unknown. And there's a part of you, and Regan, you're intuitive. It's just practicing that muscle a little bit more. You know, Kathleen's practiced a muscle for a lot of years. And so with that, and I've practiced this muscle a lot more. And so with that you can do this. It's just, first I would just check and see, what does somebody present themselves as? Is it fear? Is it sadness? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it whatever it is? And name that, and then ask for it to step aside, and then the next thing might pop up, and the next thing might pop up.
So,
you know, and it's just walking that forward, because more layers that you take off, and you'll get quicker at this. You'll get more in this once that muscle of that knowing gets cleaner.
So like I have a client coming, I send my clients homework, you know, before an LBL, and they do a lot of reflection and that. And I got some back to prepare me to help them to have a good life between life session. And this person absolutely hates her mother. In other words, she says, you know, my mom did these unspeakable things. I can never forgive her. So if knowing that, and then if I'm doing, let's say, a session with her, and I can just feel the energy when we're talking about her mother, then I can address that, right? And address that as that energy she's feeling is a negative entity attached to her that she can't let go of, and then
Yes.
try to have her release that energy.
Yes. And I actually, for me, sometimes, and this is where people kind of give permission, is just step it aside. And I tell that. I show that. Step it aside so it can stand on the side. So it doesn't have to be in front so that we can't do our work. And I actually do that action, and people say, oh yeah, I can see that it's not letting me see where I need to go. And so stepping it aside gives it permission to still be there, to be a witness, so that we can navigate with it. Because there's sometimes that anger that maybe that person had, is protecting it from really seeing the truth of what her mother was supposed to do for her.
Yeah. Well,
And that humanness is not letting her do that. So stepping that aside will give more permission for that avenue of seeing, oh, wait a minute, my mother was supposed to teach me empowerment, that I can make my own decisions. I can do the work I'm supposed to do.
yeah. Well, I know Kathleen and Kathleen's probably the same thing. It's pretty common with going with the Michael Newton Institute protocol. And we get people on the other side and their mother's there that they speak to, and they say, Mom, why were you so mean to me? And then they find out. And then when they come back, they're not so hostile towards that person because they realize there was, with a reason, like their mother was doing it out of tough love or something, coming down and being mean to them or something. And that solves a lot of problems by clients just getting that higher viewpoint. So,
Kathleen, are you able to respond? Is your internet okay? Apparently not.
That's a shame.
No,
I'm not here.
we need to have you.
I've got a really bad connection, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
what's going on.
oh,
It cleared up a little
I
bit
need
right
one
there.
of those signs.
We need to have you back because you have been a catalyst for a wonderful discussion that we've had here today. Because I still want to, I still want to delve into the differences between earthbound things that happen here and the other side, because they're, in my mind, they're different. And it's as an example, we keep talking about our humanness. Did it ever dawn on any of you that we're not human?
yeah, right. We're just playing the part of human right now, aren't we? Because in our essence, we're just spirit.
They've only been around for a couple 100,000 years, as far as we know here, whereas their souls have been around forever. So we're just playing a part in a play. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But this is a great discussion. So, Kathleen, is your thing working?
So when I talk about being human, I talk about this moment where I'm at in this
Right.
life, in this physical being called Natasha, and
You've been
that's
called
what I'm
before,
talking
yeah.
about, being human. That we are here. Yes, we're spirit beings. Yes, I mean, if somebody really looked at me, they would see that I'm totally spirit,
Yeah.
with a physical skin of just keeping my
I
physical
probably should sign
tissue.
off because
Why don't you sign off and come back on?
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Sign off
Um,
and come back on and see if that clears it up.
Regan, why don't you text her something so she knows what to do?
yeah, I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm just not getting any.
That's all right. That's all right. That's what's called live radio here.
Okay.
Well, you need to
So,
you need to
I
come
don't know
back.
what's the matter with my internet. I mean, I was on a Zoom call last night and it worked fine, but it's not working at all now. So I guess I'm taking
it's
it. You
working
can
now.
hear me. I can't.
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, she's frozen in time.
Well, we only got about 10 minutes
Sorry.
left too. So
Exactly. So, Kathleen, would you come on
Yeah,
next week
I
and
don't know what's the matter.
we'll try and clear up the problems if you come on next week.
Yeah, we can try another time if you like.
That's a good idea. Wish I'd have said that.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome, kiddo.
Thank you, Natasha. Regan.
thank you. Blessings to you.
I'll see you Thursday, Kathy.
and she's going to go ahead and I think.
Yeah.
There she goes. There she goes. That no, that's an that is the basic discussion that we are all trying to figure out the answer to. What happens after we die? Is it all light and love as in everybody's happy, or is there a segment of unhappiness and the devil and all that stuff? As we go through life trying to figure that out, that's a completely different question than what happens here, isn't it?
Well, like we've said in the past, that we may not always go back to a moment where like let's take somebody like Hitler. He did not necessarily go back to where my dad went back, where he just kind of jumped in and started doing the work of spirit on the other side. That somebody like that they kind of get taken into a special path, that they're kind of given a little bit more TLC. And now that TLC might be a little tough love. It depends on what that soul's journey is. It might be where that soul has taken on more dark lifetimes and it needs a little bit more of a walkthrough. This is what your reality is doing. This is what you're doing. It's like there's those, because not every soul is light of complete, brilliant light. We all have these different lifetimes that we've kind of come across, and not everybody is totally light. Now, I know in mine that, those lifetimes where I was more of a negative ruler in a empire, that I had to have a little bit more darkness in my soul so that I could play that role. But does that mean that I was always a dark soul? No. So then I don't have to, when I go back, go into this long journey of going through the whys and the how comes. Just like this last, 2 weeks of what I've gone through, it's like I always took this is the greater picture that was happening. Even though my physical being was going, ouch, my spirit was saying, well, Natasha, this is why this is happening. I'm going, I understand that, but I'm still a physical being having to go through the emotions of this. And that is the difference between, when I say human, it's the emotional part of us, not the angels. And a lot of our spirit that is on the other side don't have the emotions that we have here in this physical being. And that's why I call it a physical being, because there's for one, the skin that's in a reality, a dimension. And we also have the emotions that aren't necessarily all attached in all lifetimes. And so that's where we're working on many of these things that we're doing. That's why we have our, I have to say, Hitlers and perception of what, Trump was, because it's a personal perception, what Trump really was. We have these personal perceptions to be able to navigate through some of why are we truly here, and what lessons, what experiences, I'm tired of lessons, what experiences are here to teach us.
It is so confusing. Regan, give us some.
As you guys are talking, I'm trying to think of an analogy that works for me. And it's like when I was in Hollywood doing movies, I got, for some reason, they cast me as the bad guy a lot of times, where I was,
a bad fella.
There was this one movie I did a short film down there where I knew my wife was going out on me, and I found out it was a taxi driver. So what I did is I found out his route, and I got on his route and got in his cab, and then I put a gun on him, and I told him, I says, I want you to take me to a place where where bodies are buried, where no one ever finds them, and then I made him take me to that place, and then he sees me. I put something in his trunk, a big, like a body bag in his trunk, and he takes me out to the desert, and I make him help me carry this body bag, and I make him dig this grave, and it's just a dummy that I have in the bag. So I throw the dummy in, and then I say, I understand you're having an affair with my wife, and then boom, into the hole he goes, and buried him. So, but it's funny. It's like, okay, somebody had to play that role, I mean, I wasn't really the devil or being a bad guy, but I was playing that role. And the people when you think about it in that scenario of that movie, all the karma that was there of him getting payback for sleeping with my wife, of what was going to happen to my wife and what was going to happen to me because I did something bad also, so if I look at it like that, it's a little easier to understand. And because I know when we get in spirit form, we're out of these bodies and we're out of all this negativity that's down here. So the more I'm looking at it, it's like this negativity down here is part of the curriculum, the hard courses that we have to take. And sometimes the simplistic thing is to say, well, God is, because if we look at it like, let's say if we had a father that loved us to pieces and we did something wrong and he had to punish us for some reason, whatever that punishment would be. And depending on the way I look at things, I could look at him as the devil, as this horrible man that did things to me. Or if I was more enlightened, I would say, wow, I did something wrong. And he's just, okay, I'm gonna take the punishment he said, so I don't do that again. So it's all this perspective, so one person's devil could be another person's, someone's given me tough love. I guess this is boy, if we had a lot of listeners, I think we'd have 10,000 calls coming in because everybody has their view and there's of views on what the devil is and what negativity is and what purpose it serves. So it's good just to have the discussion, I think, sometimes, because it makes people just think about it. Like, hey, maybe the way I'm looking at it is maybe a little too radical. Maybe there's how do you see in the bigger picture that it's all about love, even in the negativity we go through, so.
Yeah, but it's something fun to look forward to. It's like we don't have anything to friggin' fun to look forward to. What's the friggin' point?
Yeah. That's the thing, is that we create our own cause and effects.
That's true.
And I have an understanding that karma kind of went out the window. We don't really have karma anymore. That's this whole that's that whole dimensional shift that we're going through right now. And we're working on cause and effect. It's as simple as that. That what we do, we have another effect. Now we have a choice. The lighter that we are in our steps, the less effect we're going to have in the negativity. And as we walk through something, we can create light, that we can create healing in this process. It's just, how do we carry our perception?
Yeah, I had a client, young, he's in his 20s, just his regular therapist, and he kept doing things, and like he did spray painting, and then he got caught, had to go to court, and he's out speeding, gets a speeding ticket. He can't, goes in and he can't get away with parking in a no parking zone, gets tickets. And I said, you're lucky. I said, look at, you're getting your karma back like almost instantaneous. I said, which instead, so you're getting it, you don't have to pay it back in another lifetime. It's trying to really wake you up in this lifetime. So I was saying, just watch how every decision you make there's a response to it. It's like it could be in one lifetime, I punched another guy in the face. Okay. And then in this lifetime, some stranger comes up and punches me in the face. Well, now I punch someone in the face. It's like, bam, bam, I get it right back. It's like, right. I'll go, okay, what did I do? So, I don't know, but there's a lot of discussion. So I think everybody's viewpoint is valid, because as long as we're all seeing that our whole purpose here is that our punishment or our correction or whatever is supposed to be, because we're going to learn to be, to pick the plus side of things instead of the negative side thing the next time, to do something with love instead of with hate.
So you guys have my commitment that if I go first, I'm going to haunt Natasha and tell her exactly what's for, so she can go to the world to say, this is what's for. This is what it's all about.
Well, I already have my mother of heart, Pat, my father,
I'm bigger than they are. I'll push their ass right out of the way, and I'll get in line.
I don't know. You didn't meet my mother of heart. She was she, I wouldn't meet her in a dark alley. she was.
That's a good point, because I really, there's a gentleman that I had on the other day that's written a book, and he professes that he went to heaven on several opportunities. He had out-of-body experiences, and his viewpoint of what heaven and what God is and what Jesus is and stuff changed so radically that it is like, that is the safe place. That is home. That is where we all, and regardless of what we did, do some of us who do horrible things, they need to, as Michael Newton would say, they need to have their energy restructured. So they have to go through that and rework their energy in a positive way and get rid of the holes and because this life is really tough on us.
It is.
It's been tough on you the last 2 weeks. So,
but I'm surviving.
Yeah. So it's a very hard thing that we go through, and it is detrimental to our karma, or our field, our auric field, and the soul that we are. And you have to, that's why it takes a while before you can come back, because you've got to heal and feel better about your stuff. So, but that's, at least that's my humble opinion.
Well, and too, I do that, like we said, the last 2 weeks has been, well, I'll just say I have a lot of planets in the house of death and rebirth right now.
You got a lot of planets in the house of shit. That's what you.
But that's where I take my selenite and I comb my aura out to help clear my field. I did my singing bowl where I did the vibration to help my vibration relive. I have some stones that are, like, I have a rose quartz that I actually laid on either side of our bed, because rose quartz is about healing the heart. So I put that rose quartz on either side of our bed to help change the energy of what's going on with that. And we're all kind of in this moment where we can do things to heal help ourselves become cleaner as we walk, so that as we walk, we're not so sticky and we don't carry so much of our childhood together, into our adulthood. If we kind of just say, okay, here I am right now, I'm doing with what I can do with what I know now, because this is what my experiences have taught me.
Can you see what Susan said?
Yes.
See what?
You can heal while you're here. You definitely can heal while you're here. And I know that that within a moment of something happening, I start the healing process. I start the healing process knowing that things are just moving forward. Everything has a time where something happens and something else can happen the moment after it. And what do we do in that moment to move it forward? And as we do that, there's sometimes that physical being that still needs to catch up. That mental mind that we have needs to catch up, but we can heal, definitely heal everything. And that's called, like I told my husband the other day, I said, I'm grateful that we can see the bigger picture to move forward into it. Because if we just stayed in the smaller picture, I don't know where would we be. I don't know where life would be if we all stayed in that moment of ouch.
No, that's why you got to keep moving through it, and you got to get past it. And it takes all of us working together to get that done sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Regan, what do you think?
About what?
Well, we've been talking about, youngster.
Well, I think something, I forget where, this last week, Patty and I have been having a wonderful time in this COVID thing. She came up with this, I think I told you a few weeks ago, she came up with this idea that we would get out either Saturday or Sunday, and we would go to a town around us that we, hadn't been to or didn't know much of. Maybe we'd drive by it and didn't know. And so this last weekend we did three different things, and they were all different, and it was amazing. And I can't tell you, it's like I've fallen in love with her all over again, because here we are exploring this. We went to the highest point in San Francisco, and I've driven by it a lot of times, but I never gave it much thought. And then I went on went and found this park, and it's a high point over San Francisco, and it's like a big giant rock, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 acres, or not even that. It's small, and they have these steep steps that go way, way up, and there's a little park at the top. It's maybe a couple 100 feet square almost, and then you look over, you see the ocean on one side, and you look down, you see the bay on the other, and you see all the buildings of San Francisco, and the wind. It was cold, and the wind was hitting us, and it was, I don't know, it was like we was in a spiritual place. It was so beautiful, and then next day we went to Twin Peaks, which was the second highest point, where you see a whole different view. And there was this, like, people having this pilgrimage of taking this hike all the way up to the top just to stand there and watch the sunset over San Francisco. It was just so awesome. And we did a lot of talking when we walked. We walked a lot of miles, and it's all about this thing about, like, we're talking about a relationship, is how can we just do things one little bit better? What's one little tiny thing to do, and it can change everything. Like, now she's got me, she gets tea every morning. So I make sure when I have tea late at night, because she goes to bed before I do, and I look at the tea kettle, and if it's almost empty, I just make sure it's filled up so she doesn't have to do it in the morning. It's just one little thing, but I don't even know if she notices it. She probably does, but because I don't say anything about it. But it just makes me feel good, and it gives me a connection with her of just doing that one little thing. Takes me, 1 minute to do that, and it's like, I don't know, it's good therapy for me, just doing things that way. So if you think, like, people watching this today, just, I say, as we're closing tonight, just look at your relationship and just do one little tiny thing a little bit better. It might even be almost imperceptible, but it won't be to you. You'll know that you're doing it, and watch how that exponentially increases your feeling about yourself and the person you're with.
Natasha.
I would say the same thing. I really try to leave who or where I'm at a little bit better than I left it. And even if that means sometimes picking up a piece of garbage, or just saying, like, when I was getting out of the car today, I said, Barry's, thank you. I don't talk to you very much lately in the last couple of weeks, but I agree. You've supported me. Thank you. It's just, I just try to leave where I'm at better. And if I know, like, I talked to Sue the other day, and I apologized kind of because I didn't feel like I left her better, but yet at the same time she says, so my perception was different than hers. But at the same time, it's like, just try to leave something a little bit better than you found it. And when we do that, like Regan was saying, sometimes it just changes. It just starts the ball rolling for the energy to shift a little bit different. It just helps things move forward.
Yeah, I keep talking about, I got a book halfway finished. It's called One Step Better. That eventually I'll finish one day. It's about how to do everything in your life one step better. But also, I know what it was. This is what I was trying to come at when we were walking. She was my wife, Patty, was talking about be the first. And I didn't understand what she meant. I guess it's kind of a movement going around. It's like, be the first one to smile at somebody else. Be the first one to give a nice comment or somebody. Be the first one to pick up a piece of trash that someone else left behind. So it's that same idea, and it's really exciting when you think about it, especially that even if it's just be the first to smile at somebody. I mean, just if everybody just did that, wow, it would be a life changer for people.
I can see that when I've done that, I've changed somebody's day. I can really tell that I've changed somebody's day. And I didn't do it for any payment, but I could see their energy just shifted because somebody recognized them.
Yeah.
And not so many people are walking around not being recognized. And
yeah. Well, what about when you're in an argument with a good friend? Why don't you be the first one to make it right? Don't wait don't say, well, I got to wait till they apologize to me. No, step up. You be the first one to reconciliate, even though it wasn't even your fault. I mean, just man up or woman up,
That's where I say, I'm sorry for what I did. I'm responsible for my interaction. Right. I'm sorry for maybe not what I said, but how I said it. It's like, it's that being responsible and just leaving places work better.
Yeah,
Our
that'd
world
be
can use that right now.
a whole program on that, Kev, about either, be the first and one step better. If we started to think about, especially if we had some college coming in and we talked about parenting, relationships, what you do in your job, how you, what your spiritual practice is, how you can step it up. And if you go through all those different areas, I'm sure in talking or people calling in, we could come up with some great ideas, simple ideas. I don't know why this popped in my mind too, how we just learn these little things that make our life better. There was a thing on TikTok, I guess, that my Patty watches that to unwind and gets a lot of laughs out of it. And someone says, how you get a rental car and you have to get gasoline and you go, oh, and you pull in the wrong way and the gas tank's completely on the other side. You don't know which side it's on. Well, in every car where they have a picture of your where you fill your tank, there's a little picture on all the cars out that has a picture of a gasoline thing, and there's an arrow, a little tiny arrow that points to the left side or toward the right side. I never noticed that in all the rental cars I ever had, but it's, when we were in the car this week, and I looked at hers and I went, oh my God, yeah, it's showing your fill-ups right here, So just learning that one little thing, I don't have to worry again if I'm renting a car because someone did one step better when they finally put that on a car so people don't have that issue, So, there's just 1,000 of those things, and you learn, and the life gets to be a lot easier.
Well, I got to tell you, I appreciate you two. I appreciate the people that are listening, Susan specifically. I think it makes me feel better it makes me feel good to help a friend feel better.
Yeah,
that's what this program is all about: is to try and help people get rid of hate, division, and fear, and to live life a little bit more authentically. That's why we do what we do. And Regan, his contract is coming up for renewal. So's Natasha's, and they're going to get the same big fat zero they got this year.
Yeah,
for doing this show. They do it out of the goodness of their heart. They do it because they are special people, and as well as the people that are listening. We can create a movement, all of us together. We can create a movement of smiling at each other, saying something nice, and getting rid of the hate, division, and fear, and we can do it. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to stay at it until we get it done.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I really want to. My whole purpose of life is just to say you can go from here to here. And how can I help you go from here to here? And I love being here in this moment to be able to do that, to give another perspective, just to say, we're done punishing ourselves for what we've grown up with. It's like, it's just a blessing. So thank you. And thank you, Veronica and Susan, for supporting. I know with these two women, it's like I've spent the last, 10 years with them, and they've all both become magical women, and they've helped me become that too myself.
Well, all I can tell you is I'm going to go from here to the bathroom, so we need to wrap it up now.
We're in real life here.
Yes, indeed. Mr. visittheafterlife.com, is that how we get a hold of you?
Yeah, if the people want to go to my site, you'll see people going through life between life sessions where they go to a past life, meet a master or teacher when they pass away in that past life, and then actually go to heaven. And with questions you prepare ahead of time, you can get advice on your life. You can, really get clarification on your life's mission and what you're here for, what you're supposed to learn, and talk to relatives that have passed on. I mean, it's something everybody can do. If you can fall asleep, you could be hypnotized, because that's a state of hypnosis, is falling asleep. So either when you wake up and you fall asleep in the morning, you're in a state of hypnosis. So as long as you can do that, you could be hypnotized. So practically everybody could do this. Really fun. It's life-changing. And even if you just want to have a past life regression or regular therapy, I have a lot of clients I help with post-traumatic stress, fears, phobias, anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. Happy to help you over Zoom, or if you're within driving distance. Of course, I guess I could drive to New York, couldn't I? It is within driving distance. But anyway, Zoom sessions really work, or in-person sessions for the Life Between Lives. And you can get a hold of me at visittheafterlife.com. And
And-
free book on there right now too. If you request, I'll send you a free book about the latest research in reincarnation.
And he's the hell of a nice guy too.
Yes.
Natasha?
You can reach me at angelicclarifications.com, or you can email me at natasha@angelicclarifications.com. And I just wanted you all to know that even though we talked about darkness in this video, and even though we talked about light, that all we can do is just smile at ourselves sometimes, or smile at somebody else to bring in that light. And that's the difference between darkness and light, is just bringing some kind of joy or some kind of inspiration or some kind of freedom, that it just brings that peace to someone that we can be. And that's the difference between darkness and light, is just being able to be something that brings a smile more than adding a frown.
Thank you. I have to tell you guys just a real quick story before we go, because I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting how impactful these episodes are. I have 210 now. You're the number 210. I had somebody email me, and it was in regards to the your healing hands session that I did with a guy by the name of Michael Stentano, who's out of Vegas, and I did that in 2003. And he came on the show and he healed people, and we took calls. It was a great show. And the gentleman that emailed me said, how do I get in touch with him? Well, unfortunately, he died in 2013. So I got to thinking, these episodes translate into 20 years of people that have been doing extraordinary things, and you would be benefited to listen to a lot of them, because they are they make me laugh out loud, and I did them. So you gotta. So from that standpoint, it was great fun, and but there are some really dynamic people. Some of them are no longer with us and have gone on, but a lot of them are still here, and a lot of them have got wonderful things to say. So I would ask, if you believe in this work, if you believe in what we're doing, if you believe in Natasha and Regan, like us, support us, subscribe to us, and tell your friends about us. Because
I got to show you something out here too. Now you can see. That's my last will and testament. I did my will this week, and I've been wanting to do that for like 10 years. And I found a place online that I was able to go through the whole process. You sign up, it's free for a week, and you can cancel anytime. So I was able to print it out, and then I cancel my prescription. So all I have to do now is go to a notary, I guess, and get it all notarized. And then I'm going to leave Patty a copy and one around and one on my computer. And just in case anything happens to me. But boy, I'll tell you, just, once I got over that, well, what if I'm just doing this because I'm about ready to die, and it's my intuition that's just telling me to get it done. I go, oh, whatever. It's okay. I'm beginning to be okay. Whatever, I want to be around for a while, just like I think Kevin and Natasha, we all do, because we love this work. And it's like I'm just starting to get the hang of things. I don't want to leave, and now I'm just starting to understand what it's all about. But anyway,
sometimes we do things because we don't want to leave others having to do it.
Yeah, that's
so
what I'm doing.
Sometimes just getting that checked off kind of leaves the ripple effect after differently. So it's just kind of, like my mother of heart, she was a librarian. I said, once you get your library closed, you can move on. So sometimes we have to do certain things in certain parts of our lives just to say, okay, now I cannot worry about that anymore, so that the people around me can just help whenever that time happens.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to ask Kevin, you want anything of mine?
Just your powerful brain and your voice, and being on this show. That's all.
I don't have much, but But it was good. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Natasha, because that's what's mainly on my mind. Is I've seen a few people, or know a few people, where the people died unexpectedly, didn't have a will, and it's a hell of a mess for people that just all they have to go through. My daughter, that's what really got me when her husband shot himself. Her ex-husband killed himself, a few months ago. She was on the show, you remember, and all she's had to deal with because he had no will, and his relatives back there not wanting her to take stuff, and it was but anything went to his daughter, because they had a daughter to get her, and but it's for my young daughter, 30-year-old, it's just been one hoop after another, and it's very stressful. So I'm just, I'm going to try to make it easy.
The one thing that a piece of advice that I can give everybody that really does help, and that is make sure that you have a beneficiary on every of your financial accounts. Mm-hmm. So you have something on your checking account, you have something on your savings account. I'll tell you a quick story. My brother, who died in the fall, he had an account. He had no beneficiary. My sister took my 90-year-old mother in there and said, "She's his mom. Give her the money." They wouldn't. "I'm your sister. Give me the money." They wouldn't. He had no beneficiary. She had to get an attorney. It was $4,300 in the account when they started. The attorney took $4,150.
Yeah.
In order to get it done. So,
well, what I did is I put in my thing here. I put my PIN number, and I said, if you have any trouble to Patty here, I said, just use my PIN number. Take the amount out until there's nothing left in the account, just as a backup.
No, make sure you have her as a beneficiary.
Yeah, I think I'll do that.
When you become world famous and somebody questions that, she can get in big trouble for doing that if she's not on the account.
Okay.
Just so you know.
That's good. Okay. That's
all right, guys.
See, that's one step better.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Blessings to everyone on your journey, because every moment matters. We can turn any corner at any moment in time in life, and this next moment can be your moment.
Perfect, because we've overstayed our welcome, and we need to go. So
yes.
Have a great everybody.
Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other, because each other's all we've got. See you next time on My Independence Report.